I used to think cauliflower was a tricky customer to grow, a bit of a diva, but get to know this very special brassica and you realise it's not that difficult after all. In fact, follow the tips I'm about to share and you can look forward to truly exceptional cauliflowers every time. Cauliflowers are one of the very finest vegetables you can grow, thanks to their firm white heads and really spectacular versatility in the kitchen. But did you know other colours are available too? But the really amazing thing is that most cabbage family crops or brassicas come from the same wild cabbage, Brassica oleracea, and each one's been bred for a particular trait. Now this never ceases to amaze me. Get this, cabbage, basically an enlarged terminal bud. Kohlrabi is in fact just a swollen edible stem, and then you've got broccoli, which is an enlarged immature flower bud and stalk. It's really quite remarkable. These have all been bred from the same wild cabbage. And then there's the cauliflower. Take a look at this stunning specimen here and you can really admire those beautiful tight whorls of white. Now cauliflowers can be sown directly where they're to grow, but this is quite a space-hungry crop, so it doesn't make much logical sense to have seedlings occupying all that ground while they're still quite young. Far better, in my opinion, to sow them into good old plug trays. It's autumn here, so what I'm doing is I'm sowing a particularly hardy variety that will happily overwinter for planting out next spring. This is a delicious opportunity to get ahead while most other crops are winding down. So I filled my tray here with an all-purpose potting mix. I'm just going to firm it down a bit so I create little cups for the seeds, and then I'm simply going to drop in 2 seeds per cell. Now sowing at this time of year will give us some of the very earliest harvests next growing season. It's a really delicious thought as the nights start to draw in. It gives us something to look forward to, doesn't it? And now to cover them over with a little bit more of our sieved or screened potting mix, just to get them covered to a depth of about, you know, 1/2 to 1 centimetre or up to 1/2 inch like that. And now let's finish with the water. These will now stay in the greenhouse to be transplanted into their growing positions early next spring. Now, if you don't have a greenhouse, then a cold frame would work well, or any fairly sheltered position that's safe from slugs and pigeons, and more on those ne'er-do-wells in a moment. If you're sowing an expensive packet of cauliflower seeds, by the way, some only come with like 2 dozen seeds or so, the meanies, then an alternative to sowing 2 seeds per plug is to sow into a pot of potting mix. Then once they've popped up, transfer the seedlings to their own plugs, 1 per plug. This way you're not wasting any precious seedlings. Like other brassicas, cauliflowers grow at surprisingly low temperatures, as low as 45 Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius. So if we get a mild winter and these grow surprisingly fast, then I may need to pot them on into slightly larger plugs or pots until it is time to plant them out. And that's my #1 tip for cauliflowers, is you don't want them to be held back or to set them back at any point in their growing life cycle. Just keep them growing as smoothly as possible. I won't be making any more sowings over the winter now. I'll pick up again from early spring. And because cauliflowers sown on the same date will tend to mature at the same time, stands to logic, right? Well, I'm going to intend on making kind of repeat sowings every now and then to get a nice long harvest window. So perhaps making a new sowing every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how much you love your cauliflowers, of course. When exactly you can sow will depend on the variety you're sowing and of course where you are growing your cauliflowers. Now here's the schedule for my area, but you can get a tailored timetable based on your location by using our garden planner. It's pretty clever stuff really, because it uses your nearest weather station to get those dates. Nice. Like most vegetables in the cabbage or brassica family, cauliflowers love a rich, moist and fertile soil. So it pays to add plenty of well-rotted manure or compost, or what I'm using here is leaf mould, which has lots of extra green bits in it as well when it rotted down, so it should have good fertility as well. Now we want enough to cover the ground to a depth of about 1 inch or a couple of centimetres. Oh, I just found one of Isla's socks. Do you have kids that run around the garden in their socks and take them off? Unbelievable. Now, cauliflower likes a pH of between 6 or 7, so don't worry if you're not sure what pH your soil is. Most soils will be absolutely fine for cauliflowers, but if you do know that your soil is especially acidic, then maybe get a little off-the-shelf pH testing kit. And if your pH is much below 6, then just add something to raise the pH of the soil a bit. Something like garden lime or even wood ash would do the trick. And this will just help to ensure that your cauliflowers aren't struggling. Now these guys were sowed a little over a month ago, and as you can see they're ready to plant. If I get one out of the little plug here, you can see that the roots have filled the plug nicely there, and we've got at least 2 pairs of adult leaves. That's the perfect size for planting. What I'm planting today is a summer sown variety that's great for planting out in late summer or early autumn. Now these will be overwintered outdoors, and I'm going to find it really interesting to see which will give a crop first. These guys that have been sitting here with the chill of winter, or the seedlings which are yet to germinate that have been overwintered in the protection of the greenhouse. Either way, I know that I'm going to get a nice early crop, and that's something that's very welcome indeed. These guys are going to get planted about 45 centimetres or 18 inches apart. Now you could go a bit wider than that, say 2 feet or 60 centimetres, and that will give you the very biggest heads, but I'm quite happy with more modest sized ones. Now do be guided by the instructions on the seed packet, because that will recommend the best spacing for the variety that you are growing. Now let me show you a bed of cauliflowers that I planted a couple of months ago. These are coming along quite well, but as you can see they're a little bit holey. Now these are caused by caterpillars, but the caterpillars have long since gone, so they're quite safe and will recover perfectly well. And this is the first challenge for growing cauliflowers. It's the butterflies, or rather the caterpillars of the cabbage white butterflies, also known as cabbage worms. Hello Rosie. Now during the growing season they can strip leaves with ruthless efficiency. The best way to keep them off is to use netting, of course, and clearly I left it off at a crucial time here, but these will recover now that the colder weather is coming. You could also use something a bit finer like insect mesh. That really will keep the butterflies off, so I think I'll use that next time. Both netting and insect mesh will also keep birds off, particularly pigeons, which can really strip your plants, the scallywags. Now I would keep protection for butterflies on from any time from mid to late spring onwards, and the protection for pigeons from about now right through to spring really, so they might end up being covered for most of the year. Another occasional pest is the cabbage root fly or cabbage maggot. Now this looks a lot like a normal housefly, but it lays its eggs right at the base of plants here. Now what happens is the maggots that hatch out burrow down into the soil and feed on the plant's roots, severely weakening the plant or even killing it. Now that's the bad news. The good news is these flies aren't especially smart, so it's very easy to outfox them. Cabbage root flies appear from late spring, and the simplest way to beat them is to fit a collar around the base of the stem, either a purpose-made brassica collar or cheaper, one you've made yourself. I make my own by cutting a circle of old carpet or matting about 15 centimetres or 6 inches across. Now cut a slit to the middle and then slip this round your cauliflower. The flies will still arrive and lay their eggs at the bottom here, but because they'll be laid on the collars, they're likely to just dry out and fail, keeping your plants nice and safe. Once your cauliflowers are planted and protected, there's not much more to do, to be honest with you. Just hoik out the occasional weed, as well as any kind of dead or yellowed leaves, to keep plants nice and healthy and remove hiding places for slugs, and also keep plants well watered in dry weather. That's really important to help that uninterrupted growth and to get those lovely dense heads that we're after. If plants are struggling for water, they may bolt, which is when they flower before they've had a chance to actually form those lovely heads. Now, if you're after the pearliest white cauliflowers of all, you can do something what's called blanching. I don't bother with this, but I'll just demonstrate with this, admittedly slightly bigger head. Once they reach about the size of a tennis ball, you can fold over the outer leaves like these ones here and just tie them loosely together to shade the developing head, and that will ensure it stays nice and bright and white. But if pearly white cauliflowers aren't your thing, well, worry not. Did you know there are other colours available? There are green, orange, yellow, even purple varieties that just look absolutely incredible. What beauts! So the million-dollar question, when to harvest those heads of intense beauty? Well, I like to harvest mine between about 6 to 8 inches, which is 15 to 20 centimetres across. And to harvest, in goes a good sharp knife or pruners to cut the head and its surrounding leaves, which will help to protect the head and maximise how long it keeps for. You can't help but feel this is an almost regal vegetable, and my, doesn't it look just splendid. If you harvest your cauliflowers and find there are little bugs in the head, then I've got a little tip for you just to remove them. Just pop them into a bucket of salty water, a nice saline solution, which will just drive the bugs out of the heads. And as well as doing that, it'll also help to clean off any microbes and dirt more generally, which will mean that your cauliflower will store for longer. Leave them to soak for half an hour, then just give them a quick rinse, pat them dry, then pop them in the fridge to store. In my opinion, you can't beat a potato and cauliflower curry in aloo gobi, but I've heard there's all sorts of things being done with cauliflowers. Soups, purees, or cauliflower rice, anyone? I'll let you be the judge. Cauliflower cannot be beaten for its sheer beauty and absolute splendidness. What an absolute winner. I'll catch you next time.